today on 365 Sports. How often do you guys ever remember in really any sport where in the middle of the season, a rule that was used to benefit Dan Lanning and Oregon last week, a critical part of the game, the last few seconds of the game, gets changed in the middle of the year?
I don't remember one at all. Not to, I don't remember one at all. And this one, though, I agree with them having to change it because now that the cat's out of the bag and, Dan Lanning admitted that they practiced it, they did it on purpose and all this, they kind of had to do something because it's a copycat sport, and never been like, well, run the 12th guy out there. So what? It's a 5-yard penalty, but we really care more about the time they can run off, especially say that there's only 5 seconds left on the clock, right? And then, yeah, I know the game can't end in a defensive penalty, but if we just stopped your best play and now you have to do a play that we know exactly what you're going to run, well, there we go.
Yeah, it doesn't happen often, if ever. I don't know. I don't feel like we've really spent much time ever discussing rules on this show in the last 3 or 4 years, unless I'm just blanking on something, but certainly nothing that led to a rule change of any kind. So that game continues to be in the national conversation because of that. I'm, aware there's a lot of Ohio State fans that are like, well, if that's a change call, then the outcome should be looked at differently and whatnot. And it's like, no, that's not the way that it works, unfortunately, for the Buckeyes. But I think it's smart to address it. And unfortunate they didn't catch that could be a loophole previously. But now you know that it's out there, and in order to avoid that becoming a bigger issue, you're making a quick change to it. So I'm sure there's somebody somewhere out there that has a problem with that, but glad to see that they're acting quickly, probably the quickest they've acted on anything. It feels like everything else in college sports seems like it takes forever to get done. But this just took a matter of, 4 days to get turned around.
Yeah, the interpretation, what Ohio State was able to do was get a penalty, but the time that was missed or that went off the clock never was put back because of the loophole in the penalty. And because Oregon knew that, they took advantage of it. It cost Ohio State a few seconds. And if this would have happened to Oregon State or maybe Iowa State, I don't know if the NCAA changes the rule, but it's an Oregon-Ohio State game, and so it got a lot of attention, and the Buckeyes also with a little clout. But that's not why – I hope not, because Ohio State got mad. Billy Napier.
I will point this out, though. There is still a tiny loophole.
In the loophole.
In that if it's a legitimate mistake and the player is running off the field – they say that the time will not be put back on, but that feels to me like you just told guys like Dan Lanning, okay, run him on and then run him off.
Yes.
Like, make sure he doesn't affect the play. So, I just know that smart coaches will always find a way.
It's not even smart coaches. It's just coaches will find a way because they all look for loopholes. And, you see the rash of guys dropping like flies on the field every Saturday now.
Yeah.
I was sitting there watching Ole Miss, and in that game, both sides had guys go down just while a drive's going on. Like right as there's some momentum gets kicked up, here's guys just all of a sudden they're hurt, and they pop back up, and they just run to the sideline like it was no big deal. Like that's going on constantly now. It feels like at least once in every game that I'm watching. And I'll say this. I still don't know that they did that on purpose. I know that it's fun to wink, wink, nod, nod, and act like you did after the fact, but I don't know.
He said they did.
Did he say exactly that they did?
Yeah, he said they practiced it because they did it on purpose because I don't know if it was Dan Lanning.
I know he said that they practice situations.
Analyst. Yeah.
They practice all sorts of situations, but I don't know that he ever said, like, yeah, we intentionally did that.
I thought, I don't have the quote, but
it doesn't matter.
But it's a Bill Belichick. Maybe you or one of you guys said it's a Bill Belichick type thing that you knew the rules. And you have all these football analysts, and you wonder how many of them maybe were grinding on some of these rule changes or even rules. But it was brilliant no matter what, because it eventually cost Ohio State what was incredible other than points, which was the value of time left in the game. Billy Napier on the SEC coaches call about, I don't see that with the Big 12 anymore. Do they do that? Used to get an email all the time about the Big 12 coaches would go like whatever. It's 16 coaches. It's probably impossible. Billy Napier on the SEC call about hot seat speculation, I don't have any control over that. I do think that we are improving, is what he said.
Well, yeah. I mean, I get that somebody has to ask him about how it affects you or whatever. But, yeah, he has absolutely no control. Billy Napier is not going to be the coach at Florida next year, barring a miraculous finish to the season. But they've already lost to A&M, Miami, and Tennessee this year, and that's not what they're paying him to do. And so because of that, like, you're not beating any of the good teams you played. So, yeah, he's gonna get moved out the door, and they haven't been good the entire time he's been there. And we'll see what happens. But, yeah, he doesn't have any control over it. And they played really well against UCF. They played okay. They played good on defense. They played good on defense against Tennessee. I would not say they played well on offense, but they were there in overtime with a chance to win it. But the offense has really been everybody's biggest problem over the Billy Napier tenure because he insists on calling the plays, and he is not he's kind of stuck in the Jimbo mode of, no, my offense works. Like, well, seems like everybody you played disagrees.
Well, first of all, going back to the hotline thing, I don't think it'd be too much to have 16 teams because the SEC has 16 teams, and they do it. So
my question, well, I agree. My question is, we used to get an email that would mention that the coach's call and the order and when it would start and even a link to it. I haven't gotten one of those, I think, in a couple, 2 or 3 years. I don't know if the changes in the media relations department force that or not. But the time, yeah, I mean, it's 5 minutes or so. It's not like they're on for very long.
Yeah, I'm just saying, like, it's not impossible because clearly one's doing it with the same amount of teams, so you could do it. I guess they just don't do it anymore. But regardless on this situation, I mean, I think the writing's kind of on the wall. And, you look at that schedule, and maybe they beat Kentucky this weekend, but beyond that, you play Georgia, you play Texas, you play LSU, and you play Ole Miss over the next month after that. So that's very likely 0-4. You add on the fact you're 3-3 now, so that Kentucky game can maybe give you a 4th win. And then you play Florida State at the end of the year, and who the hell knows, like one of the worst Florida State matchups in I guess recent history probably. Yeah. So that game's not going to matter outside of just those two wanting to beat each other. Unless Florida finds a way to snag another win somewhere, but hard to see where that's going to come after this Kentucky game this weekend, which that might not even be a win. It is in the swamp, but, yeah, Georgia, Texas, LSU, Ole Miss, those are all three of those. The first three are all top 10 teams right now. That's what's remaining on Florida's schedule. So, yeah, it's hard to see where they're going to be able to make the postseason, and therefore, I don't know if that would ensure his job just simply getting to 6 wins, which is a stretch right now, but certainly not making a bowl game would seem to be the final nail in any coffin that Billy Napier has down in Gainesville. But I don't know. Maybe they view it differently. It doesn't sound like it, though. It sounds like that man needs to win, and it's hard to see where those wins are coming from.
Brent Venables needs a win. After getting smoked by Texas, last year they had a nice bounce-back year. The offense looked atrocious. We even asked Phil Bennett about Oklahoma's offense. He knows a couple of the guys on that staff, including Seth Luttrell. He was asked about midseason changes on his offensive staff on Tuesday. You go back and look at where I've been. I've not been a part of any staff changes in the middle of the season. Bill Snyder, Bob Stoops, or at Clemson with Dabo. There are always problems. Sometimes people know about them. Sometimes they don't. There's always some level of struggle. You got to work through your problems, find the best possible solutions. And he went on to say more. Is he making the right decision by not having any coaching changes?
Well, I mean, I'll let Craig speak more deeply on this because he knows the roster more, but I don't really think it's the coach's issue right now, other than if those coaches can't get you better players in the coming years, then yes, you need to make changes. But right now, it's a talent issue to me, not a scheme issue.
Yeah, I think people just want heads to roll just to feel some blood on their hands and to feel like something's being done. I don't know what good it does you right now. Like, so you're just going to grab a guy on staff, mind you, and you're just going to make that switch, and that guy's going to suddenly make the offensive line block better and the receivers healthy and your quarterback's better? I don't think so. I just think people have seen enough, and that's understandable when it comes to Seth Luttrell. But, yeah, I don't know. There's this big fervor after getting blown out by Texas, which I understand that kind of amps everything up. But wanting to see, some kind of change. Like, there has to be a change on Monday. I've seen all these people. There has to be a change of Sooner 42 Bob. There needs to be a change on Monday. It's like, what good is any change going to do right now? Who's going to call plays that's going to be any better than what they already have? And how's the personnel change as a result of that? So it's just fans wanting to see some bloodshed because they need to feel like changes are being made. Now, look, the offseason, you clearly have to do something. You need to figure something out because otherwise Brent Venables is going to be the one that's on the chopping block here sooner rather than later.
Yeah.
But, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what good it does in the middle of the season or what great options. They want Joe John Finley gone. That's a Sooner guy right there. Seth Luttrell's a Sooner guy.
So is DeMarco Murray.
DeMarco Murray, people have seen they want him gone. He's another Sooner guy, which I know that's the downside to hiring alumni. But, yeah, I don't know how that benefits you in any way, and it's certainly not going to make you win more. So if you want to, put some guys out on the street a little bit earlier than you normally would and still want to lose a bunch of games, then by all means burn bridges and go out just with everybody miserable. But outside of that, like I say, it's like Baylor. It's like, what good does it do to fire Aranda with 6 games left?
That's what I've said. I mean,
it's like, what does it do?
Yeah.
And I'm seeing this. We got to get started. It's like, there's nothing to get started on, guys. Like, you still have to build the recruiting class. Like, the surefire way to ruin it is to just, fire guys right now with no plan in place. But yeah, it's like people don't think about the next step. So you're sitting there starting a head coaching search. You mean a search that nobody's going to take for another 4 or 5 weeks? So what is the point?
Well, part of it is I think fans need to come to grips, and also universities, when they make these decisions, need to come to grips with the fact of, look, when you're firing your coach, you're starting out behind the 8 ball. Like, you're not going to find a timeline that you're like, oh, Smokey's fired, Craig's hired, recruiting class saved. We got the best transfers too. National champs next year. Yeah, you're just not going to do that.
This isn't Texas Tech going and hiring Joey McGuire, a few years back.
Yeah, that was a rarity.
That made sense, for everybody to do it. It sucked for Baylor, and I think Joey would even say, maybe I should have done that differently. But, then it wasn't a big – it made sense. He was a position coach that goes to take a head coaching job and gets starting from scratch, basically, because Matt Wells didn't leave it all very stocked all that well in terms of, all the changes McGuire wanted to make. But what's the new OC going to do right now? Nothing for you. So, yeah, you got to let this ride out and just take your lumps and then, start making your plans. What you can do is start making your plans for what you are going to do when that time comes here in a few weeks. But no point right now.
By the way, Oklahoma has had, again, like a lot of the teams with those names, top 10 recruiting classes. Last year, the year before that, comprehensive list if you include everybody that ranks them. So it's not like they're devoid of talent. But I'll tell you right now, I don't know what Hawkins can end up being. I did not like what I saw. Not in the offense that people are used to at Oklahoma. And Jackson Arnold has obviously not been the answer. I saw where they discussed the possibility of redshirting him. I don't know if he'll be back. Perhaps. I don't know. Also, here's the neat note. Chuck Cooperstein, by the way, in 10 minutes will join the show. USC sells a VIP experience called Run with the Team. Fans can take the field with the Trojan. It costs somewhere between about $1,500 and $1,800, depending on the game. This week at Penn State, a Penn State fan did it in full gear. And again, another way to make money in certain ways to add to the
Yeah, but look, when you allow to have $1,800 worth of free cash to control your data like this, and this is
money. It's just money.
yeah, I guess so. But yeah, way to go, the Penn State fan. I don't know how much he affected the game, and he's got some views on it. I thought it was pretty funny. Look, if you've got $1,800 to burn and you can rub in USC's face, I guess.
I can see Kim Coulter doing this on a road trip in Texas.
Yeah, I can also see a lot of Adderall-eyed TikTokers that are going to be doing this on a regular basis with things like this. But yeah, that's a cool little thing. I think he looks like he's having a blast. And, yeah, it seems like a unique experience. I don't know if it's really $1,500, $2,000, close to $2,000, but based on that video, it looks like it might be. So if you got the scratch, and especially if you're a USC fan or just a college football guy who wants to say you ran out on the field at USC, then yeah, that seems like a cool deal and a pretty simplistic way to make a few extra $1,000 if enough people sign up.
All right, then this one here, I just happened to see this today. We have had the South Dakota State coach on. We've had North Dakota State and what they've done. They're meeting numbers 1 and number 2. Meet this week. I believe the game is in Fargo. South Dakota State has won back-to-back national titles. They've won 5 consecutive games against North Dakota State, who used to run. The Bison ran FCS. North Dakota State and South Dakota State meet again. Game of the week, really, in a lot of ways in college football, if you look at the analytics, the data, the rankings, and more. North Dakota State, of course, has a ton of national titles. But you know what? South Dakota State has won the last 2 in 2022 and also in 2023. North Dakota State won a ton. Sam Houston won the year of COVID, which was great to see the Bearcats do that in 2020. Last time for North Dakota State was 2021. They play this weekend. It's on ESPN. It's a night game if you have any interest in watching them play. All right, around the corner, we will.
Did we do Jeff Sims?
No, yeah. So a quarterback change, not good news for Arizona State football.
No, the human turnover machine, Jeff Sims, is their backup to Sam Leavitt, and he will start. Sam Leavitt has a rib injury, I believe, and is going to be out for a couple weeks. So let's see. We'll see how good Kenny Dillingham is at coaching up quarterbacks, because at Georgia Tech and at Nebraska, Jeff Sims was the human fumble.
Yeah, I mean, this is definitely a downgrade. No other way to put that. Sam Leavitt's had some good moments. Also had some, bumps along the way. He's a young guy, but I thought he, played pretty well last time I saw him. And it's unfortunate that right as they're starting to get some, good momentum going, the big win the other night, that now he's out of the lineup. That just sucks, because they're sitting in a really good spot now. And this does, I think, perhaps derail him for a couple weeks, however long Leavitt's going to be out. So, yeah, that's an unfortunate turn of events. I didn't realize he was banged up, or just didn't maybe think that it was all that serious to where he would miss time. But, yeah, that's not going to be good. I'm trying to pull up their schedule here, but for some reason, you got Cincinnati this weekend. We talked a bit about that yesterday.
Back-to-back road games, right?
That's a road game, so I don't like their chances as much with Jeff Sims going into Cincinnati. They definitely don't have the better quarterback. Brendan Sorsby is light years beyond what Jeff Sims has been, so that would just tip that game further in Cincy's favor for me, whereas maybe it's a really close game. Maybe it's a little less close as a result of that. I don't know. And then you travel to Stillwater. We'll see if Jeff Sims is the starter again, next week, but that's a bummer. That's definitely a bummer for Arizona State, although it does look like they got the bye after this. So just get through this weekend. Scattaboo.
Yeah, a lot of it.
And then, maybe get a win and then get into that bye week and see where you are on the other side of that thing. But, yeah, they need to get him healthy.
In his career, he's thrown 31 touchdowns. He's also thrown 29 interceptions. And I watched him at Nebraska, believe me, early on, and he doesn't just throw picks. He doesn't handle the ball, and he doesn't protect the ball, which is the number one thing an offense should do, and the number one thing you want your quarterback to do. But good luck to him. Hopefully he's turned the corner. Arizona State with now Jeff Sims, the transfer from first Georgia Tech, then Nebraska, and now in Tempe. All right, this hour, Chuck Cooper's team. This hour,